imagine you were on the phone with a friend.
Right.
It's late. They're lost in the dark, but they're, relatively calm. They are describing their surroundings perfectly to you.
Like the crunch of the gravel road.
Exactly. The gravel, the wire fence they just climbed over, the sound of a river running somewhere off to the side, and you were driving to pick them up, navigating based on every single visual cue they're giving you.
Because that's all you have to go on.
Right. And then suddenly, mid-sentence, they yell, "Oh, shh!" And the line goes completely dead.
Wow.
You pull over, you call back immediately. It rings, but there's no answer.
It just keeps ringing in the dark.
And your friend is never seen again. Now, learner, if you're listening to this thinking that sounds like, I don't know, the cold open to a Hollywood thriller, I do not blame you.
Yeah, it really does sound like a movie.
But that is the exact agonizing reality that Brian and Annette Swanson lived through in the early morning hours of May 14, 2008. We're looking at the vanishing of 19-year-old Brandon Swanson.
It is such a haunting case.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this by going back to that night in 2008.
So, to understand the sheer scale of this mystery, you really have to understand the geography of western Minnesota. Brandon is a 19-year-old student. He's studying wind energy at a community college campus in Canby, Minnesota.
Okay.
He's just finishing up his semester, so he celebrates at a couple of small parties. And just after midnight, he leaves Canby, heading for his parents' house in a town called Marshall.
Which is pretty close, right?
On a map, yeah, it is a straight shot down Highway 68. It's about a 35-mile drive.
But he doesn't take Highway 68.
No, he doesn't.
He opts for the rural back roads. And learner, if you have ever driven through the rural Midwest at night, you know these roads.
Oh, yeah, pitch black.
Pitch black. No street lights, no reflectors, just miles of gravel and endless fields of crops. And eventually, Brandon's Chevy Lumina slips off the gravel and gets hung up on an incline in a ditch.
But he's not hurt.
Right, he's not hurt. The car isn't wrecked. It's just stuck. So at 1:54 a.m., he makes the call to his parents, Brian and Annette, and asks them to come get him.
Which sparks this 47-minute phone call that is essentially the crux of the entire case.
Yeah.
His parents jump in their truck and start driving. Brandon decides he's not going to just sit in the stranded car, so he starts walking toward what he thinks are the lights of a nearby town.
He tells his parents he is near the town of Lynn.
Right. And he's giving them real-time updates. He's crossing fences. He hears water running. His parents arrive in Lind, and they are driving up and down the roads, flashing their headlights, honking the horn.
Trying to signal him.
Exactly. But Brandon says he doesn't see their lights. And they definitely don't see him.
Even though they're theoretically in the exact place he says he is.
Right. But when police finally get involved the next day and trace Brandon's cell phone ping, they find his abandoned car near a town called Taunton.
Which is wild.
Taunton is 25 miles away from Lind. It is in the completely opposite direction.
It is a massive geographic glitch. I mean, it's like using a map of New York City to try and navigate Chicago.
That's a good way to put it.
Learner, imagine walking down a street in Chicago, looking at the sidewalks, the stoplights, the intersections. It all feels like a correct city grid.
Yeah.
You are describing your reality perfectly.
Yeah.
And someone on the other end of the phone is trying to map your descriptions onto Brooklyn. It's an impossible task because you are in a completely different universe.
And if we look at the physical evidence left at the car, it just deepens the confusion.
What do you mean?
Well, people at the party said he had consumed a few drinks, but friends insisted he wasn't visibly intoxicated when he drove off.
Okay.
And when police found the Chevy Lumina, the doors were left wide open and the keys were missing. It wasn't a violent crash scene at all. It was just a teenager who got stuck and started walking.
But how does he get 25 miles off course? Here's where I want to bring in a fascinating nugget from the web sleuth's source, because this blew my mind.
Oh, the road sign detail.
Yes. An internet sleuth dug deep into the local county maps and found something that completely reframes this error. There's a road out there called Lyon-Lincoln County Road. It's right on the border of those two counties.
Right.
And it turns out there's a Lyon-Lincoln County Road near Lind, where Brandon thought he was.
Yeah.
But there is also a Lyon-Lincoln County Road near Taunton, where his car actually was.
It's the fatal error hiding in plain sight.
Yes. Think about it. Brandon is walking in the pitch black. He likely sees a road sign in his headlights before he leaves the car. Or maybe he uses a lighter to read a sign on the walk.
Makes sense.
He sees Lyon-Lincoln County Road, tells his dad, and they both naturally assume he's down near Lind.
Because why wouldn't they?
Exactly. So Brandon keeps walking further and further into the dark, rural farmland toward what he assumes is safety, completely unaware he is marching into the abyss.
And because of that singular misunderstanding, they were searching 25 miles away from his actual location.
That's so frustrating.
It is. The crucial first hours, the golden hours of any search and rescue operation, were entirely lost. By the time law enforcement found the car and relocated the search grid to Taunton, the physical trail was already degrading.
Now, this is what I don't get. Once they find the car, they have the starting point. They bring in hundreds of volunteers. They bring in dogs. Learner, I always assumed search dogs were basically foolproof. You give them a scent, they put their nose to the ground, and they walk a straight line to the target. How do they find absolutely nothing?
Because the reality of scent tracking is so much messier than we see in movies. What's fascinating here is the incredibly complex, almost fragile science of scent in this specific environment.
Okay, tell me about the environment.
This part of Minnesota is known as Buffalo Ridge. It is prime territory for wind energy, which ironically is what Brandon was studying.
Oh, well, yeah.
The winds on Buffalo Ridge are relentless, and they don't just blow in one direction. They constantly shift by 45 degrees or more through the day.
So the scent isn't a solid line at all. It's
Yeah.
just being violently blown to pieces across the prairie.
Exactly. And it's even more dynamic than that. Scent is physical matter. It's skin cells, sweat, bacteria.
Gross, but true.
Right. During the day, the sun warms the earth, the air rises, and the scent travels up and disperses on those shifting winds. When the air cools at night, that scent condenses and drops down, settling onto the vegetation miles away. The next day, the sun warms it, the wind catches it, and the cycle repeats.
Oh, man.
You don't get a breadcrumb trail. You get a jagged, dispersed, zigzagging cloud over an area that eventually spanned 122 square miles of search grids.
Reading the sources on this really clarified it for me with an analogy.
Yeah.
Imagine dropping a single drop of red dye into a moving, branching stream. Now, wait 3 days, look at the faintly pink water a mile downstream, and try to figure out exactly which rock the person holding the dropper was standing on.
That is a great visualization. And you mentioned the stream, which brings us to the other major environmental hurdle, which is water.
Right.
This is an untouched wilderness. It's highly managed agricultural land.
The farm drainage tiles. It's part of the deep dive, blew my mind. But wait, back up for a second. How does a human scent on the surface actually get underground into a pipe?
Rain and moisture. When it rains, the water washes those microscopic scent particles off the grass and the soil. The water filters down into the earth. To keep these massive crop fields from flooding, farmers install underground drainage tiles, which are essentially large perforated pipes deep in the soil.
Oh, I see.
The water carrying the scent gets into those pipes. The pipes funnel the water underground and eventually dump it out into a drainage ditch nearly a mile away.
So the dog gets a hit in a ditch, and everyone thinks they're close. But the actual source of the scent, the footprint itself, is a mile away in the middle of a random cornfield.
It's just incredibly frustrating.
And there's a specific detail in the local newspaper source that highlights the absolute agony of this.
The bone.
Yes. At one point, after guys like volunteer search manager Ken Anderson and Jeff Hassey had driven over 36,000 miles on their personal vehicles looking for this kid, the dogs got a massive hit.
Yeah, they hit on a bone out in a field.
Now, as an adult human, Brandon has 206 bones. Searchers only need to find one to verify his fate and solve the case.
Right.
The dogs lock onto this bone, everyone holds their breath, and it turns out to be an animal bone.
It underscores the immense limitations of the physical search. The environment is actively, mechanically working against you, destroying the evidence hour by hour.
And because the physical science hits an absolute wall and the terrain essentially erases the footprint, it creates a massive vacuum of information.
And nature might abhor a vacuum, but the internet loves one.
Exactly. When there are no facts, people sitting at their computers hundreds of miles away start inventing their own realities. Let's look at their Reddit and web sleuths theories.
The internet sleuthing community latched onto a few key details to build their narratives. Let's look at the most prominent early theory first, the drowning theory.
Okay.
He told his parents he heard a river. His car was found near the Yellow Medicine River, and initially the bloodhounds tracked his scent dismally toward the water.
I have to stop you there, because the Penn State blog and those Reddit threads point out a massive, glaring flaw in the drowning theory. Yes. His parents called his phone repeatedly after he yelled, and the line went dead, and the phone kept ringing. It rang into the next day before finally going to voicemail.
Which is a huge detail.
Learner, think about a cell phone from 2008. If he slipped down a bank into a freezing, rushing river and drowned, that phone would have been submerged and instantly destroyed.
It definitely wouldn't have kept ringing on the network for another 12 hours.
Plus, the dogs actually tracked his scent past the river, up the other bank, and down a gravel road before losing it.
Which is excellent critical thinking by those shoe crime bloggers. It forces the forums to pivot to other environmental hazards.
Right.
They dug into his physical condition, noting he was legally blind in his left eye and, crucially, had left his glasses inside his abandoned car.
Exactly. So he has severely compromised vision in the pitch black in an unfamiliar rural area. This sparked the theory that he simply walked into an old, unmarked farm cistern or an abandoned well, which apparently peppered that landscape.
It's a highly plausible theory, but a tragic accident isn't always enough for the internet.
No, it never is.
If you look at the discussions on places like the conspiracy subreddit or web sleuths, the theories escalate significantly into malice.
The foul play theories.
Yeah. They point out his car doors were left wide open. They note that the FBI eventually placed his case file in VICAP, the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program.
Which usually implies a suspicion of foul play or a serial offender, right?
Exactly. You start seeing elaborate theories of a hit and run on a dark gravel road, followed by a frantic local cover-up.
Which leads to this concept that the armchair detectives love, the forensic void.
Oh, right.
A poster on Reddit literally asked, where is the hardware? How do heavy leatherwork boots, a set of metal car keys, and a cell phone just vanish from the face of the earth without a trace?
Because they assume someone took them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Their logic is because nothing has been found on the surface, it absolutely must be a deep state cover-up or some sinister local conspiracy to hide his body.
And this is where we have to look at the psychology of the internet sleuth. Why do they default to a cover-up?
Because it's easier.
Yes, because a cover-up implies intent. It implies someone is in control of the situation, even if that someone is a villain.
Wow, yeah.
It is psychologically much easier to believe in a grand, malicious conspiracy than to accept the terrifying, chaotic reality that a 19-year-old can simply vanish into the mud by accident, and nature can just swallow him up.
That's such a profound point. The mundane reality is actually scarier than the movie plot.
It really is.
And the farming community sources in these threads bring a heavy dose of that gritty reality to the forensic void argument. We're talking about industrial agriculture here.
Massive machines.
Right. These farmers use deep plows and heavy machinery that churns the earth feet below the surface. Local farmers chimed in to bluntly explain that if a large piece of farm equipment runs over an animal or a person, it is entirely ground up and pulled deep into the topsoil.
It's awful to think about.
It is. But there is no trace left on the surface for a searcher to find.
It's a brutal reality, and it also explains the friction between the internet sleuths and the local cattle ranchers.
The access issues.
Yeah. Over the years, several ranchers explicitly denied search teams access to their grazing land.
Yeah.
From the outside, sitting at a computer, the internet immediately jumped to, they must be the killers, they're hiding the body.
Right. Internet sleuths sitting in their ergonomic gaming chairs in the suburbs suddenly decided they knew more about local bovine behavior than the actual Minnesota cattle ranchers.
They thought it was a conspiracy.
But the reality is entirely economic. Having a team of strangers, ATVs, and strange dogs wandering through grazing land spooks the cattle.
Very much so.
It creates a massive financial liability.
Right.
If a herd of cattle panics, stampedes, breaks legs, or busts through expensive fencing, that is a direct threat to a farmer's livelihood. It's not a murder cover-up, it's agriculture.
It really highlights the danger of imposing the logic of a thriller onto the harsh realities of the physical world.
Definitely.
But while the internet was busy spinning these wild theories, Brandon's parents, Brian and Annette, funneled their unimaginable grief into tangible, real-world action.
Yes, they did.
Their son was gone, but they were determined to fix the system that failed them in those crucial early hours.
To understand what they accomplished, we have to look at the bureaucratic nightmare they faced on May 14th.
It was a mess.
When Brandon's parents tried to report him missing at 6:30 a.m., just hours after he yelled and his phone went dead, the police essentially brushed them off.
Because of his age.
Right. Because Brandon was 19 years old, legally an adult. They looked at his mother and told her he had, quote, a right to be missing.
Which is a deeply dismissive, archaic policy.
Since it's infuriating.
And this delay wasn't just about a stubborn desk sergeant. It was paralyzed by jurisdiction. Think about the geography we discussed earlier.
Oh, the county lines.
Exactly. Brandon's car was physically parked in Lyon County, but the road right next to the car, that boundary line, was Lincoln County.
Okay.
And his last known location on the phone, the cell tower ping, was in Yellow Medicine County.
So you have 3 different police departments. And instead of launching a massive rescue, what are they doing? They're pointing fingers.
Fighting over red tape.
Yes. Who is going to pay for the helicopter? Who has to file the mountain of paperwork? Who takes the liability if something goes wrong? It's bureaucracy completely paralyzing a rescue mission while a teenager is potentially bleeding out in a ditch.
Precisely. But Brian and Annette Swanson refused to let that be the end of the story. They lobbied the state legislature relentlessly.
Good for them.
And in May of 2009, the governor signed Brandon's law. It fundamentally changed how missing adults are treated in Minnesota.
How so?
First and foremost, age was taken completely off the table. If an adult goes missing under dangerous or suspicious circumstances, police are now legally required to take the report and begin an investigation immediately.
So no more 24-hour waiting periods.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? Learner, let's bring this right to your front door. Why should you care about a law passed in Minnesota over 15 years ago?
It's a valid question.
Because it shifted the entire culture of law enforcement nationwide regarding missing adults. If your adult sibling or your best friend vanishes tonight under weird circumstances, law enforcement has to act instantly, largely because of the precedent set by cases like this.
Absolutely.
There was a detail from the sources, an analogy made by a police chief that just stopped me in my tracks when I read it.
Oh, the Bloomington police chief on the legislative committee.
Yes. This chief had a sudden, honestly embarrassing epiphany during the hearings. He realized that if a citizen calls the police to report their 1998 Honda Civic stolen, the police don't ask the car's age.
Yep.
They don't tell the owner to wait 24 hours to see if the car comes home. They take the report immediately, every single time, and they put out a bulletin to start looking for that property.
For a person.
Exactly. For decades, police departments were forcing families to wait to search for a human being. A stolen car was getting more urgency than a missing 19-year-old boy.
It's a staggering realization. Brandon's law flipped a switch and demanded that human lives are worth at least as much urgency as stolen property.
As they should be.
And practically, it also solved the jurisdictional chaos. The law made the State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the BCA, the central clearinghouse for all missing persons cases.
Which means what exactly?
It ensures resources are coordinated from the top down so local departments aren't fighting over budgeting and paperwork while a scent trail degrades in the wind.
It is an enormous victory born out of a devastating loss. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to reflect on the sheer endurance of the people left behind.
The searchers and the family.
Yes, the volunteer searchers, guys like Ken Anderson, who are still willing to suit up, manage logistics, and walk the freezing fields a decade later.
Incredible dedication.
And the heartbreaking image of Brandon's parents, Brian and Annette, who left their front porch light on every single night for years, just hoping their son would figure out where he was and walk out of the dark.
It's a profound testament to hope in the face of an agonizing ambiguity. And it leaves us with a deeply provocative reality to consider.
Yeah.
We live in an era where we feel entirely tethered to the grid. Our phones track our exact steps, cell towers map our daily commutes, and we are in constant, instant communication with everyone we know.
Right. Learner, you probably feel like you couldn't get truly lost right now, even if you tried. You have GPS in your pocket.
Exactly. Yet the disappearance of Brandon Swanson proves that the wild, dark, physical world can still swallow a person whole, literally mid-sentence.
It really does.
It can leave behind a permanent digital footprint, a cell phone pinging desperately in a field, a finalized 47-minute call log on a server somewhere, but absolutely no physical trace.
Wow.
It forces you to wonder if your technology failed right now, tonight, and the screen went dark. How well do you actually know the ground beneath your own feet?
That is a haunting thought to leave on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive, learner. Keep questioning the world around you, and we'll catch you next time.